Hello and welcome to the It's Always Sunny in Phoenix podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we, three Suns fans, discuss the team as well as general NBA and sports thoughts. I'm Mitch, your host, and joining me as always are Charlie and David. How's it going, guys?
Hey, pretty good.
Good. Let's just get right into it. The first thing we'll talk about here is the Miami game from Friday, January 8th. It was a 103-95 loss. And Charlie, you covered that game. So what are your initial thoughts on that one?
Well, we got burned by some old Suns. Dragic had a big game with 22 points and 7 assists. He came out hot right away. And then Gerald Green had a good game, 21 points.
Yeah, it was funny because we had just talked about Gerald Green and how we missed him, but at the same time we're kind of glad he was gone. And then, of course, he burns us. That was kind of funny.
I think it was 2-1.
What's
I think it was 2-1. I think you guys were like, "Oh yeah, I miss him." I was like, "I don't at all."
Well, okay, two of us said it then, but it was still kind of funny, and we all expected Dragic to have a good game, so that was nothing surprising. The thing that stuck out to me was Dwayne Wade turning back the clock, as I like to put it. He had this little 360 spin kind of move in the paint that he finished with a two-handed dunk that really impressed me. It looked like he was in his 20s again. What did you guys think?
Turns out he's really good at basketball.
What's that?
Oh, it turns out he's really good at basketball still.
Yeah, he is. That was super impressive. And Chris Bosh having his kind of resurgent season after being out last year. He's a guy that I think a lot of people really like. And I like watching him, especially after what happened to him last year with the blood clots in his lungs. That's tough. So, yeah, really happy for Chris Bosh. Ronnie Price was also out with a toe injury. What impact do you think that made?
I think putting Archie in at that backup point guard, that was quite the experiment, I guess. Maybe not experiment, but an interesting situation, seeing him come in and having to handle the ball. But he ended up with just one turnover that game and a few assists, so that was great.
Yeah, David, do you have any thoughts on that?
I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Archie. I think he has a lot that he can do. Sometimes I think that he does tunnel vision too much, but the last two games that has not been as much of a concern. He's been a little bit more unselfish, and I think being told, "Hey, you're running point, you need to be able to look for your guys, and then if no one's there, then be willing to score." And I think in that role, past two games, he's been able to make the most of it.
Yeah, I really thought that he has been a lot better. We talked about him a little bit in the first episode, and I was kind of looking for him to prove all of our points right, but he's been sharing the ball a lot better in the past couple games. And that's been really good because Price has been out. And then the other guy that we talked about last time was Booker, of course, who has really been capitalizing on his minutes lately. He's been leading the team in scoring for a while now. What do you think that he did in the Heat game that stood out to you guys?
That 11-point run on his own, we were on a 19-2 run in total, and he put up 11 in a row. I think he had a 4-point play, a 3-point play, a jumper, and a layup. I think that might add up to 11. But that was just a lot of fun to watch. He was on fire. He got the crowd alive. That was just great.
That does in fact add up to 11, and it really shows that he has a really polished offensive game already as a rookie. He's able to attack the basket. He's able to step back jumpers. He's able to catch and shoot off the dribble, kind of just everything. He has a chance to convert every single time when he does whatever move he makes, which is nice.
Booker's game is really versatile, and I think he is improving on defense as the season is going on. He's got good size for his position too, I think. As his career goes along too, I think that he's going to grow into his NBA body a little bit and adjust to guarding more athletic guys, and that'll help him a lot on defense. But I think he can be a pretty decent defensive player.
It was nice to watch that matchup between Booker and Dwayne Wade too. Dwayne Wade is a all-star shooting guard on his way out of the league. Booker has that potential to be an all-star, and he's just getting his feet wet in the game. And they really went back and forth quite a bit in a few stretches, and that was a lot of fun to watch.
Definitely. That actually reminds me of something. I remember back in a game against the Bulls, I have a friend who's a big Bulls fan who was telling me he read a story about how Devin Booker was trash-talking Jimmy Butler. Have you guys heard of something like that? No.
I did see that, and I do believe that Booker replied in a tweet and said that he was not talking trash, and he said he must have had him confused with someone else. So I don't know where to go with that.
Okay, I just thought that was kind of interesting since he's a rookie, and as good as he's been this season, he doesn't really have the place to trash talk Jimmy Butler. But I just thought that was kind of funny. So anything else with that Miami game that you guys want to talk about before we talk about the Indiana game?
No, let's move on.
Okay, so Indiana was a pretty entertaining game, actually. It was close in the second and third quarters. First quarter was a little rough. We ended up losing 116 to 98, I believe. And it was interesting because there was a Super Bowl reminiscent power outage that lasted about 20 minutes. What did you guys think of that?
That was...
Same electric grid as Candlestick, obviously.
That was really interesting. On the Fox Sports Arizona feed, it was all the cameras all of a sudden went all crazy, and it was interesting. I think I joked in my recap that the basketball gods just couldn't handle Phoenix taking that lead for the first time in the game, so they just had to put their foot down.
Yeah. It also, I messed up the score. The final score is 116 to 97, not 98. Don't want to spot us that extra point. But David, you did the recap on that one. What were your general thoughts?
Well, going into the game, looking that Knight was out, Price was out, Alex Len was out, you kind of knew that it was going to be pretty tough to be able to turn around and win the game, especially when we haven't been necessarily playing our best basketball. But I was really impressed with the second and third quarter once everyone kind of started rolling. I guess it was about at the tail end of the first. Markieff Morris got put in. Lorenzo Brown was in. The lineup was... So it was Teletovic, Markieff, TJ Warren was out there. And then I believe it was PJ and Lorenzo Brown. And they were able to start getting a little bit of a rhythm going and being able to start scoring. And they were able to go on a nice run. And they were down by... I mean, they started the game 12-0 and were able to get to within 6 at the end of the first. And then by halftime, or by the power outage, they were up to... Halftime was a whole different story, but...
I have to say something really funny, actually. As soon as you said Lorenzo Brown, I got a fan-sided update on my phone of an article called "Who is Lorenzo Brown?" That is...
Did it answer your question?
No, but that was just the greatest coincidence. That is so funny.
I remember we talked about it on the last podcast about Lorenzo Brown being signed with Cotton and Jefferson getting cut.
I was actually really impressed with Lorenzo Brown. What do you guys think about him?
Well, he came in and he had those 2 great assists to Keefe. I think both were dunks by Keefe, so that was inspiring to see right away. He hit a 3. That shot looks pretty nice, and he looks like a true point guard out there.
Yeah, he definitely has playmaking ability. It was nice to see that he was driving hard into the paint, and instead of looking to score right away, I mean, he's on a 10-day contract. He's looking to make plays. He was able to see Keith roll into the rim, and both times they were both dunks. And he was really able to help capitalize on that. He got that three. He got a lay-in after the fact. He was playing some good defense, getting rebounds, getting assists. He helped with that run, and he really impressed. I mean, he's on a 10-day contract, but I wouldn't be hurt if they decide to, even if he has a stinker and the next game or two, to give him another 10-day and see how he's still playing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. After we signed him, I went and watched some just YouTube videos of highlights from the D-League and from college. And he is a very passionate, energetic player, which is what Phoenix really needs right now. And playing with TJ Warren at NC State is awesome for team chemistry, especially because TJ Warren is probably going to be getting some more minutes. So I think that's really great. We also talked about Markieff Morris playing, actually, in this game against Indiana. He finished with 16 points, which is the most he's had in quite a while. What did you guys think about him, especially with some trade rumors looming?
It was kind of just a typical Markieff game when he was... I mean, last year, especially, it was high volume. It wasn't the best percentages, which is what you're going to have when you're shooting mid-range jump shots. He went 0 for 4 from the three-point line. He was able to score 16 points, and he really helped with getting the Suns on that run. He's not going to be a high percentage jump shooter where he's not going to be shooting anywhere near 50% from the field, 50% from mid-range at all, ever. That's just not what he's going to be, but he can bring energy, and he can make plays. He can make plays in the paint. I thought his best looks were when he was rolling to the rim, when he was posting up in the paint. I think those were the best plays, and I think he might have missed one, but I forgot to write it down. I forgot to check, but most of those shots he made, and that's where he really succeeds. Almost lost my word there, but he really succeeds in there, and I think that's what he plays best. When he can be efficient in the paint, and then let the jump shot just let them give you the jump shot when you catch it in the mid range, and they're backing off because they don't want you to drive. I think that's when he plays his best. He'll definitely help a team, depending on what team it is. When he gets traded, it's not a if he gets traded. I think it's definitely it's just a when. It's what can people get? Could he go to Cleveland and be a backup 4 off the bench, even though they are stacked at 4 and they have enough guys that can play that position? Or does he go to someplace like Houston and we end up getting back less than favorable haul back in? Or is there another trade on the table that hasn't been thought of?
I think our GM likes to keep those trades pretty quiet, and it seems like whenever we do make a move, no one has any idea it's going to happen. So I could see all the talk is about that trade to the Rockets for Jones and Brewer, but I could see him going somewhere and surprising everyone. And another note about Markieff's game, he pulled in 9 rebounds. And I think he's a 5-6 rebound per night guy over his career. So that was good to see.
Yeah, definitely. The Rockets trade is interesting to me. The potential Rockets trade, I guess, is interesting because it seems more publicized. And like you were saying, Charlie, we usually like to keep that stuff under wraps. I'm really hoping to be surprised. I think that's such an exciting part about being a Suns fan. Some people probably don't like it, but I enjoy the element of surprise. You know, it keeps you on your toes. It's fun. Even last year, the trade with Goran Dragic and all of that drama was, I mean, it was like watching a soap opera. It was fun.
That's one way to put it. Around this, or a little bit before this time, we did that random trade for Brandon Wright. Really, everything
right.
was kind of out of the blue. You didn't really see it going. The Rockets, you can almost telegraph the moves that they're going to make. They're not as close to the chest, and oh my goodness, all of a sudden there was this random trade here, random trade there. You can kind of see what's going on. They were talking about Ty Lawson before that trade happened. It was a little bit surprising of the mechanics of it, but you kind of thought that would happen. You thought that when Corey Brewer, it was something that could be telegraphed a little bit. But so I think that's why you hear a lot of the Houston side, and you hear about that trade a lot. I personally do not want Terrence Jones. I don't want Corey Brewer either. Terrence Jones, I think, does well off the bench against backup power forwards, but guys that could start at power forward in the league, I don't think he's nearly as good. Those are the games where he tends to disappear, and his shot seems to not fall against those games either. When he comes off the bench and he's playing against those backup power forwards, he looks good and he's knocking down shots, but I don't know if it's a confidence thing. And Corey Brewer is a volume 3-point shooter, and I think this entire year, I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty positive he's been below league average. So I'm not necessarily, I know that trade gets brought up a lot. I like to think that unless we can get them to budge on Demo, that we don't even trade with the Rockets, and I think that's a big thing with Goran Dragic. There was that big, it was really telegraphed last year that it sounded like Goran was going to be going to the Rockets again, and it sounded like they wanted to trade Terrence Jones, someone else to match up a contract, and then some picks, but it sounded like the Suns only wanted Demo, not Terrence Jones, and the Rockets didn't want to give up Demo, so that trade just never happened. But that's where a lot of people thought that Goran was going last year. They thought he was going to Houston, and that just didn't happen.
What do you think about all this, Charlie?
I think we could get a lot better than Terrence Jones through the draft or free agency next year. I'm not even sure exactly all the power forwards that are on the free agency list this upcoming offseason, but I do know that this draft class is pretty packed with some 4s and 5s that could really make a difference for a team pretty soon after they get drafted.
Domantas Sabonis being one. But that's a whole nother episode for me.
Well, plus we have Lure and Teletovic, and both those guys have been playing well. Lure had a bad game against the Pacers, but Teletovic was tied for the team high in points. And I think the Suns like both of those guys. Lure's still really young. He can be that stretch forward that really thrives in the Suns system. And Teletovic is the same thing. So I think both of those guys fit with the team very well. Terrence Jones, I don't think can consistently knock down a jumper enough to be able to fit into the Suns system. And I think with PJ Tucker and TJ Warren, we don't want another small forward to eat into those minutes.
And I think Teletovic has been great too. He is leading the league in 3-pointers made off the bench. It's great when you can have someone like that score 15 a game or whatever he's averaging. And he's got a nice shot. I really like him. I think he's been a great addition to the team so far.
Yeah, he shot 5 of 8 from behind the arc yesterday. Or that was yesterday, yes. That was yesterday. I almost forgot. Against the Pacers, he shot 5 of 8 from behind the arc. 15 points from 3. That's all. If you can get that from a backup, get that off your bench, you're going to be more than happy.
And this month, Mirza is averaging 16 and 5.
Oh, that's great.
Really nice numbers off the bench. And I think a lot of teams that are going to be competing for a playoff spot or deep into the playoffs will really want a guy like Mirza. And I bet we get some requests for him at least.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true down the stretch. I don't want to lose him though. I hope he stays on the team.
I think he's young enough that he can
Right.
still fit into the long-term plans, and he has that game that's just going to age very well. He's not gonna have a problem with aging, so I think that as long as he's okay with being on a team that maybe doesn't do that much this year, doesn't make that much noise this year, I think that he can still fit into the long-term goals and not just be flipped right away with the Suns.
Definitely. He's also been working on some shots inside the arc, I've noticed. He's hit a couple step backs and a couple leaners from mid-range that have been pretty nice, and his rebounding also has looked a lot better lately.
Well, his three-point shooting is known. It's not a secret. So a lot of teams are daring him to drive to try and get those kind of looks, and he's at least going for it. He's not converting those at a high percentage, but he's going there. He's trying to expand that part of his game and hit those at enough of a clip where other teams have to at least be honest. And I think that's what you can ask for, and all you can ask for, that is. But
Yeah.
But when he is shooting those threes, he does not get distracted. There can be a guy flying at him full height, at the peak of his jump, and he'll just splash it right over them. As long as he gets those shoulders squared, he can shoot it up every time, as far as I'm concerned.
and he has a quick release. He a relatively quick release too. It's not a ridiculously quick release, but it's a quick enough release that even when a guy is close, and it's not going to take him too long to get that shot off with a good look still.
And he's so fundamentally sound and honed in, so concentrated. So I think that makes a huge difference. Like you said, not getting distracted with a guy in his face, which is so nice. Any final thoughts on that Indiana game before we move on to some previews?
George Hill still has blonde hair.
Still has blonde hair.
He does.
I actually have PJ didn't have a huge game. PJ didn't, and but it's kind of the game that you want him to have. He didn't score. He didn't really do all that much, but he played defense. He got Paul George into foul trouble in the first half, which really helped the Suns get on that run to not be down 12 points. He was able to do that. He was going for rebounds even when we were down 15, 20. He was still going for those rebounds, going for it. And that kind of heart is what you expect from PJ, and it's what you want to see. And he is the toughness of that team. When he's playing tough and going for that, it helps the entire team. There's no wrong whenever he does any of that. There's no negative.
Definitely. Yeah, having a glue guy persona kind of like that is nice for any team. The other thing I enjoyed in that game was the Monte Ellis versus Devin Booker battle. They were just going back and forth for a while, and that was really fun.
We all just really like Devin Booker. Let's be real here.
That's true. But Monte Ellis, too. We talked about him a little bit last episode, but it seems like he's really found a nice home in Indiana.
It's the perfect fit. I mean, he's not a reliable three-point shooter. He's kind of ball dominant. He doesn't play the best defense. And I mean, he's a slasher. He's a slasher shooting guard. And with having George Hill, who's defense first, doesn't need the ball in his hands, can shoot the three, is a good ball handler, but he isn't ball dominant. And so being able to really have Paul George and Monte Ellis really share the ball most of the time. And I mean, Paul George and George Hill are both perfect fits to be around Monte. Monte can most of the time get the easiest defensive matchup for him with those guys, and it really shows. And I think his confidence with that, it's taken a little bit of time for his offensive game to translate, but there isn't a more perfect fit for him, I think, than that Pacers team.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on that game, Charlie?
No, I'm ready to talk about the Boston
Okay,
game.
perfect. So I think what we'll do here is, since we also are writing articles for the Multiple Sources site, I think that we'll have everyone talk about the game they're covering coming up. And we have 3 games coming up before we record again, and each one of us is covering a different one. So I'll start. I'm covering the Boston game, which is on Friday the 15th. Isaiah Thomas is coming off a couple big nights. He had 34 the other night and has been really, really good in Boston this year. I think a lot of Suns fans are missing him. But, I mean, as we talked about before, the system was weird with the 3-point guards and whatnot. But he's really been great, so I'll definitely be looking out for him. And Kelly Olynyk, one of my favorite players, has quietly been having a pretty decent season. I saw that Zach Lowe tweeted earlier this season about him, saying that he's looking impressive and that he's just really evolving his game to the NBA. This year, he's averaging 9.3 points, 4.3 rebounds a game, 1.6 assists a game in about 20 minutes or so. So it's not bad. In college, he was kind of the superstar for 1 year at Gonzaga. And when he went to the NBA, I don't think he expected to have that treatment. And he's been solid off the bench. Great option there. So I'm looking forward to seeing that Boston game for sure. What are you guys looking for in that one?
So definitely anyone that's a mainstream media is going to be talking about Isaiah Thomas. How no one really knows why the Suns decided to make that trade. If you trade Goran, you think that they keep Isaiah. If they trade Isaiah, you think that they keep Goran. It was really interesting. They decided to trade the Lakers pick up Brandon Knight, and then ship out Isaiah. It looked like that was part of the same deal at one point, but it wasn't. It was really interesting. A lot of media members have no idea what was going on. Even some Suns fans think, what if we would have just kept the Lakers pick and held on to Isaiah and kind of gone from there? Of course, then you have a glaring weakness Isaiah's best off the bench as the 6th man, but you don't have a starting 2 at that point. Or do you trade for Brandon Knight in that same spot, but try to keep Isaiah and just try and throw out the 3-point guard lineups? Even though offensively they had a huge net rating for most of the time, but it's a lot of what could have been, what could have not been, what could have happened, coulda, shoulda, woulda. That's going to be a big thing. And I also want to point out that the Celtics and Suns are in very similar positions right now. They both are teams basically full of role players, a couple guys that could be all-stars, 1 or 2 each, but don't really have that go-to scoring guy, that go-to scoring all-star on their team. And it's really like any one of the guys on the Celtics, any one of the guys just about on the Suns, you could put onto a championship team and they'd be the perfect role player. And I think that they reflect each other really well. They both are young. They're both decided to, instead of just tanking forever, they decided to turn around and try and be competitive as much as possible. Both GMs trade very well. Brad Stevens, though, is definitely a better coach than Hornacek. That's not saying Hornacek's bad. That's just saying Brad Stevens has gotten that team to overperform a little bit better. The Celtics have a better record. Does that contribute to being in the East still? Is the East really that much better than the West this year? Or is it about the same? Or, who knows? But I think that if you're just kind of looking into the matchups a little bit more, you can start to see how the teams mirror themselves pretty well.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. What do you think about this game, Charlie?
I actually like watching Avery Bradley play basketball. He's kind of an undersized shooting guard, kind of a tweener between a shooting guard and point guard. And he plays good defense. He'll hound the best guard on the opposing team every night, do a pretty good job of it. And he's scoring 14 points a game. And this is one of those games that you'd really like to have Bledsoe and Knight both around and healthy to match up against those two, because it's just a solid matchup.
Definitely. So I have a question for you guys now. The Kelly Olynyk Kevin Love altercation from last season. What does the average fan think about that in your guys' opinion? In my world, at Gonzaga, we've all tried to forget about it, and we just say, oh, Kelly's just a bad rebounder. He wasn't doing it on purpose. But you guys are neutral, or I think neutral to the situation. So what do you think about Kelly Olynyk? Do you think he's a dirty player?
I don't think he's a dirty player. I just think that was a dirty play. I don't catch a whole lot of Celtics games, but I haven't heard of him doing anything else too terrible. So even though it was a little almost gruesome watching him pull that arm out of the socket, I think I can give him a pass for that. I don't hold that against him too much.
So I'm not a big Celtics fan. It's just the household that I live in. I don't like the Celtics. That being said, it was just a dumb play. It wasn't it was bad. It wasn't intentionally dirty. He wasn't trying to give a little bit of extra pull. It was just a dumb play. There was a play with Alex Len, I think it was last year, where he ran into Westbrook while Westbrook was going for either a dunk or a layup, and he kind of ran into him a little hard, and there were Thunder's players calling him dirty, and I was like, it's not dirty, he's just not the brightest. It was just a dumb play. And I think that's where that stands with Olynyk. I don't think he's a dirty player. I don't think it was intentionally a dirty play. I think it was just a dumb play.
But you guys are pretty reasonable. Do you think that the average casual NBA fan thinks the same thing?
Well, the Cavs claim that that's the reason why they didn't win the finals. But, yeah, they think, so if you're a Cavs fan, you think that, well, Kevin Love goes out, then Kyrie breaks his kneecap. That's it. That if they would have had both those guys, they would have won. I do not subscribe to that theory at all. I think that you take out the reason the Cavs were able to do so well against the Warriors was because they slowed down the game and just tried to milk every possession and just crash the boards, so that way you could try and stop the Warriors from running out of the building. And I think when you have Kevin Love, who is a worse defender than Tristan Thompson, and you have Kyrie Irving, who is playing well, Kyrie would have helped them a lot, but there's no way that he would have had all first team defense to be able to stop Steph. And Dellavedova didn't really completely shut down Steph. Steph had a bad game, and he kind of you saw the Warriors really have they were nervous. They were in the finals. There was a lot of pressure to win for that team, but they turned it around. I think that we still would have had the same response. I think there would have been more shootouts if Kevin Love and Kyrie were in, but I don't think that it would have drastically changed the series.
I think the only people that are really upset are the real Cavs fans that haven't hopped on the Golden State Warriors bandwagon yet.
You mean the guys that were Heat fans a couple of years ago?
The Heat, Cav, Warrior fans.
Oh, so the people that comment on ESPN Facebook posts.
Yeah. Them.
Let's make some final score predictions for this Boston game. I think we're going to lose because it's in Boston. And I think it's going to be similar to the Pacers game where we play them close and then they take over in the fourth quarter because they're at home. it'll depend on how healthy we are. I know Brandon Knight was out just because he had food poisoning, so we'll see if he plays. But I think we'll probably lose maybe 110 to, let's say 110 to 100. Very round numbers.
I think you're overestimating the Celtics scoring a little bit. I think that it's going to be really close. I think it's really going to depend on who has that player that comes off and just starts knocking down shots when it matters. I think it could go either way. I don't really feel comfortable saying one way or the other. I think the easiest one is to say, well, the Celtics are a little bit more healthy, so they can probably rein it in. And especially, I think even if Brandon Knight plays, there's going to be enough defense that he might end up coughing the ball up a couple of times, and that could make a difference. If Brandon Knight doesn't play, then there's not really a go-to guy to lock down on the Suns, unless that's Teletovic off the bench or something. But so I think the game can be the game's going to be close. I don't feel comfortable saying either way. I don't feel good about making a prediction. So
the only reason I say that they're going to score so much too is because we've been giving up so many points.
Our defense
lately.
is awful.
Yeah. What do you think, Charlie?
I think I'm not saying the Celtics front court is great by any means, but without Len and how Chandler's been playing lately, I'm a little worried about how we can put up with all those big guys, especially Sullinger. I just have a feeling that we're a team that he could kind of take advantage of with that strength. Yeah, that's about all I got there.
Okay. Let's talk about the Minnesota game on Sunday the 17th. And Charlie, you're covering that, right? So
Yeah.
what do you think about that one?
All right, so we played them already once this season. We won that game, actually, 108-101, but we still had Bledsoe, so that's obviously a big deal. And I'm looking forward to Devin Booker continuing his journey against guarding all these solid shooting guards. He'll have Kevin Martin, and he's a sneaky guy. He gets to the line a lot. He had 19 on us last game, and that's just a good matchup for our shooting guards. And then last game, Karl Anthony Towns only played 18 minutes, had 8 points and 6 rebounds, and I think he's been getting quite a few more minutes than that since then. So that'll. I don't believe Len will be back for that one either. So we'll have our hands full with him. And then Wiggins is hitting 21 per game this month so far. He's a dynamic guy. PJ has his hands full with him. And then since we've played them, they have Big Peck back, Nikola Pekovic. He's just a horse down in the paint. He has a tattoo. This is a little off topic here.
It's okay.
He has a tattoo of him standing on skulls. It might not be him, but it's on his calf. It's a dude standing on a pile of skulls. That's just intimidating. I don't want to guard him.
You know, that's one of those things that you say, and I'm just not even surprised. It's like, oh yeah, no. you could say that like he has a tattoo of like, or like paintings in his house of him like murdering bears or something. I'm just like, yeah, no, that sounds about right.
Jeez. Oh, that's funny. What about the guy I think of every once in a while with Minnesota is Shabazz Muhammad. He was so publicized out of college, but he just fell off. What do you guys think about him?
I think that's a classic case of just not getting any minutes and having a lot of guys at that position and not a whole lot of minutes to go around. I think that a lot of Timberwolves fans thought that he would play a bigger role. And I'm not sure if that's just a rotation issue with Sam Mitchell or any of that. Maybe he would be getting more play if Flip was still around. You know, who knows? I think that's just, it's an unfortunate situation, I think.
Yeah.
He can put up a lot of points in a hurry, though. Last year, when we were matched up against the Timberwolves, I think he put up, this is a guess, but I think it was 28 points. And he kind of came out of nowhere and had a big game for him and then kind of faded back into the bench. And didn't really make a difference from there on out up until now, really.
Yeah. The other guy that I think we have to talk about is Kevin Garnett. He, whether you like him or not,
Old man KG.
He's still so impressive because he's been playing so long. He's one of the NBA greats at this point. And I think it's pretty exciting that he's gone back to Minnesota for one last hurrah with them. I think that's great for their fans.
I think it's a great move. I completely agree. I think it's a great move that, they traded Thaddeus Young, which not the best move, in my opinion. I think Thaddeus Young was not, they shouldn't have given up on that. But bringing in KG, that just meant more to the fan base. That meant more to the young guys. I mean, what situation would you like more? Would you like Jahlil Okafor being able to take all the minutes that he wants with nobody really around him to mentor him, just let him play, let him figure it out? Or would you rather have Karl Anthony Towns being able to play alongside one of the top, I don't know where you place him yourself, but at least top 10 power forward. That's lowballing it. Wherever you want to put him in your rankings, being able to learn from that. KG's always been a vocal leader. He was a great defender in his prime. He's still not a terrible defender. He could shoot from just about anywhere on the floor. He was just one of those guys.
Definitely. What do you think about him, Charlie?
Oh, I've loved KG since he came into the league. That enthusiasm, almost craziness he brings to the court every night. That's really nice to see. Some old school ball there. And yeah, like David said, having Towns be able to learn from him for this year at least, and I assume he'll retire after this season, but that's just a great mentor for him to have, and maybe KG can get some of that competitive spirit passed over to Towns.
Definitely. Do we want to predict the score on that one? I think we're going to win that game. I don't really know why. I just kind of have a feeling that we'll be due. And they're also a young team, and they can make some mistakes just like us. So I think we've got a shot to win that one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we are due for another victory. It seems like we've lost enough in this little stretch here to be due for one, and I could see us putting up some points against them, and I could see them putting up some points against us too. So I expect a high-scoring game, and we sneak it out.
What's your prediction, David?
This could have some possible lottery implications. There's not really going to be a whole lot of playoff implications with this game. This could very well end up having a huge spot in the lottery. This could go with those rankings a little bit more with the positioning. I don't know. We can probably pull this one out if everything kind of rolls right. I'm not necessarily sure, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts before we move on to previewing the game after that? Nope. Okay, let's talk about January 19th. That's a Tuesday. We play Indiana again for the second time in a week. And David, do you want to start talking about your general thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I'm actually not covering that game, it looks like.
I just realized that, actually. But you can still talk about it first.
Yeah, so the matchups we kind of seen, we've seen them already. Is PJ Tucker going to be able to shut down Paul George again for at least a half? Are we going to have Brandon Knight back? If Brandon Knight is back, will we... is he going to end up turning the ball over because George Hill can play really good defense? If Ronnie Price is back, or if he's not, if Ronnie Price is back, will he get the start over Devin Booker? Just so that way you take a little bit of pressure off of Brandon Knight. I mean, there's a whole lot to look at. I don't think that we have a chance, even with Brandon Knight. I mean, I guess we do have a chance if PJ just completely gets Paul George in foul trouble and Paul George isn't able to play for the majority of the game, then I think that's the only way we really have a chance. And if we can force the Pacers then to take bad shots with that. But, I could see something similar to the final score of this last game. Possibly a little worse.
I could see that happening.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I could see a very similar game happening again, even if Knight is back. And what I would like to see is just to play the full 4 quarters. We really fell apart in that fourth quarter. They got hot. We couldn't put anything up, and it just got a little ugly towards the end there. I'd like to just see him put together a full.
To be fair, we fell apart in the first quarter too, so.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you. I think it's going to be a very similar game. And really, I'm just hoping for an entertaining game. I think the last game against the Pacers was pretty entertaining, especially the second and third quarter. So that's what I'm hoping for. Do you guys have any other thoughts on that one before we move on to our player of the week?
I'm good.
Nope.
Let's talk about Devin Booker.
Let's talk about him. As if we haven't talked about Devin Booker.
We need to talk more about how just fantastic and how much we love Devin Booker.
Yeah, he just so impressive. Came from Kentucky, played 1 year there, didn't start, doesn't matter. He was the SEC sixth man of the year. Came to the Suns, fortunately, and we've talked about how versatile his offensive game is with its three-point shooting, which he was really known for in college. He's continuing that in the NBA and just improving on it. Do you guys think that he has had these skills for a long time and they just weren't as known when he was in college because of so many other great players on that Kentucky team? Or do you think he's been developing a lot this season?
He's done a lot more than I was expecting him to so far this season. I think it has something to do with once he got here, maybe he got a little fired up and really started to work on his skills. But I'm not bashing him in any means by his college career. He had 10 points a game for them. Coming off the bench, that's great for a sixth man there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is necessarily anything new. I think he had these skills. I just don't think he really showcased them at Kentucky because that's not the system that he was in. College basketball is a lot more about systems than it is about individual and building a system around your players. And I think he had all of that. I think he had that scoring. I think most people thought he would just be a spot up 3-point shooter, that it was quite possible that the shooting would take a little bit of time to come about just because of this shorter college 3-point line. That ended up not happening. He's good from the NBA 3 right out of the gate. And I really think that he's been given a little bit more of the green light to, okay, if you can do this, go for it. You can do this, go for it. You're showing this in practice, do it in the game if you have the opportunity.
I definitely think that's the case, especially this season. And I think as soon as Bledsoe went down, that was Booker's green light to try anything that he wanted. So I think that's really the silver lining of the Bledsoe injury too, is that Booker gets the shot to do whatever.
Agreed.
Yeah, and since the game Bledsoe went down, he's been getting 12 more minutes per game, and he's averaging almost 15 points. So in that stretch, he's really showing what he could do someday.
That's huge.
I mean, in the Indiana game, he shot 6 for 6 in the second half. I mean, I would have liked him to maybe take a couple more shots to just kind of pull him back in. That's not really what was gonna be going on. Him and Archie kind of he got hot, then Archie started driving into the paint to try and get them keep them scoring. But it's just going to be one of those things as he matures as an NBA player that he's going to be able to go and demand the ball a little bit more. His teammates will start to try and get him the ball more if he just continues to shoot lights out.
Well, and his shooting is so good. 48.8% overall and 45.8 from 3. That's amazing.
He was leading the rookies in percentages for a short while. I'm not sure if he still is. I haven't looked it up, but I mean, there was at least for a while he didn't have enough attempts to be categorized, but his percentages still are very good. I mean, 45-45 basically. That's not bad.
Yeah, not at all. Do you think he's a Rookie of the Year candidate?
I don't think so yet. I think maybe since Bledsoe is gone, if he really turned it on for the rest of the season, he'd be in there. But Okafor and Towns and grabbing all those rebounds, their stats just look so much better.
I don't even think Okafor. I think this is a Towns Porzingis race for Rookie of the Year. I think both those guys. I think a lot of other rookies are performing, really well too. I mean, D'Angelo Russell's playing really well. Booker's playing really well. Trey Lyles is playing really well in Utah with those minutes opening up with so many guys hurt. Justice Winslow is playing really well. There's so many guys that are playing well, but I just think that Porzingis and Towns, no one thought that they were going to be as good as they are right now. That they were going to be able to just come in and start knocking shots down right away.
I'm really impressed with this rookie class overall, how NBA ready they are. So many of these guys came in and everyone said they'll need a little bit of time to develop, but they've proved those people wrong in just showing up and getting it done right away, which is great. It's great for the game.
Agreed.
So back to Booker, let's look at, we've talked a lot about what he's good at, but aside from 3-point shooting, what do you think his best qualities are?
I think basketball IQ is probably the best thing. He just knows the game so well, and I think that attributes to having a dad that played basketball, some pro ball. He was his dad Melvin played for Missouri, Big 8 Player of the Year in 1994, and he played a lot of time overseas. And I think he really taught, when you're in that position to be taught by a professional, like as your dad for your whole life, I think that really benefits a guy.
For a second I thought you were just going to say, he's pretty good at basketball, but
it's true.
Yeah.
I agree completely with you, Charlie. I think that his dad playing overseas helped him a ton. Growing up in that environment, there's so many players that do grow up in kind of that environment. Klay Thompson talks about all the time about, Michael Thompson played for the Lakers, how he was always growing up around the Lakers organization still and being around Kobe and all that kind of stuff. A lot of guys are able to grow up in that situation, but I think Booker absorbed it very well. Being able to absorb the flow of the game and being able to, he doesn't make really bad decisions at all on the court, which is, he'll have a turnover here or there or whatever or that, but it's never something that you're like, oh man, he shouldn't have done that. It's just like, I'm totally fine with him trying to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another example of players with NBA parents is Steph Curry. that's something that has helped him a lot, especially very early on with fundamentals. That's big.
It hasn't helped Austin Rivers out as much, but what can you do?
Yeah, I guess it's not always the case.
It's not always the best.
What's something that Booker needs to work on? We talk about how great he is, but I'm sure we can pick one or two things that he really needs to work on.
Defense, will come along. He needs to still work on it, but most rookies do. I think that will come along as his body becomes more accustomed to the NBA. I think that I would love him to just be way more aggressive. I think he's still worried about not making a bad play, and I think that I think he has a lot of open looks and a lot of spots where he could make more plays. And I think that as he keeps going, he's going to be willing to take those up. But there have been a couple of times where he catches it and he has plenty of space between him and a defender to get a shot up, and he doesn't and tries to make the extra pass. And I would love for him to just try, and maybe he doesn't make them all, or maybe he clanks them off the rim, but I would love for him to just be a little bit more aggressive.
One thing that I can pick out, and it is being very picky, is he's shooting just under 78% from the line this year. And with that automatic stroke, you think he'd be around 90%, That's one thing. And then another thing is, this is rare, but it seems like when he is penetrating and gets stopped, he does tend to throw a bit of a wild pass every once in a while, trying to fire one back out. But that's understandable. That's pretty nitpicky, but that's what I got.
Yeah, we're really digging right now.
Yeah.
He's a great player. Is there a specific game of his that has stood out to you guys so far?
I'd say that Charlotte game, his first career double-double, he went for 17 and 10 rebounds. That makes him the second teenage guard of all time to grab a double-double and the youngest son to get a double-double.
Huh. I didn't even know that. That's exciting.
There you go.
I remember that because I had to cover that game. So that Charlotte game was great. I think that both these last two games, the Miami game, he was able to go on those runs where he really showcases that offensive game. I think are some of those highlight games. These past two games have been those. I'm trying to think. His dance skills really showed up in that Chicago game with the Mirza buzzer beater. Those really showed up. That was a pretty standout.
I think his past couple games have been really good, but I was gonna say there isn't exactly one game of his that has stood out to me especially. I think his career so far overall is more important to me, and to everyone pretty much, but I can't pick like one thing. I'm just so impressed with his overall game. How high is his ceiling? Do you think he can be a superstar?
I think he'll be an all-star. He'll grow a lot. It's going to take some time, but I could see him making some all-star rosters in his career. And I wrote this down just as a prediction, but I'd say he has the capability to be a 20-point, 5-rebound, 4-assist guy. I think that's pretty lofty, but it seems like he has that all-around game, good size, and a bright future, so I think he can do it.
I try to really try to see. I think that the draft day comparison of Klay Thompson, I think if that's his ceiling, just about every Suns fan is okay with that. If that's the best he can be, that's fine. I'm totally fine with that. I don't think that his defensive game will be nearly as good as Klay Thompson. He's about 3 inches shorter than Klay. I believe Booker's 6'4" and Klay's 6'7", so There's definitely a height gap, and that helps Clay be able to play better defense. I don't think Booker's defense will be able to match up to Clay's, but I think that he could be able to be a better playmaker than Clay. Have a little bit more of the point guard skills of being able to be able to rack up a couple more assists a game, be able to get those open looks for his guys through either penetration or everyone trying to make sure that he doesn't shoot a three. I think that just a little bit more playmaking but less defense, ceiling wise, I think was what you could look at for best case scenario.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. What about nicknames? Do either of you have a good nickname for him yet?
Nothing original. I've heard Booker D, like Booker T from wrestling. You guys watch any WCW back in the day?
Nope.
Well, that's too bad for you guys. But otherwise, just Devin Booker, it's just a solid name. He doesn't really need a nickname. Or you go...
His middle name is Armani. Isn't that the greatest middle name ever?
It's pretty classy.
Yeah, he's not hurting when it comes to the what do the kids say, the swag nowadays. Yeah, having the middle name Armani just kind of he definitely has no problem when it comes to ladies, I bet.
I think the nickname I have for him is off of the Booker D thing. I think it should be Booker D Washington. I took this class about racism and slavery. It was a really interesting philosophy class, and we read some Booker T Washington. And so when I heard people saying Booker D, I was like, oh, Booker D Washington. That's a cool nickname.
I'm fine with just calling him D-Book, so...
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
Or Armani. I think Armani, he needs to capitalize.
I'd call him Armani. I don't care. I mean, I don't have as much imagination as some of these guys. I know some of the guys that were trying to push Slim Reaper for Kevin Durant and all this other stuff, and I know a lot of those guys are like, oh, well, I just want to be called with my two initials. And that's lame. But, I mean, Book, D-Book, I think both of those are safe and fine. I don't know. I have no imagination, so...
Nicknames like Glenn Big Baby Davis just don't come along too often, and they don't work that well. So I think you need to come in with the nickname. I think it has to be in place already. I don't think you make up a new one.
I think a nickname right now that I really like that is only the Suns broadcasters, Steve and Albert. When he calling TJ Rush Hour, I love that nickname. Everything else that is
a good one.
Well, David, I disagree with you on the Rush Hour. I'm sorry, but I'm not big on the Rush nickname.
Hour. I think that goes off of his play, like his offensive game really well. I think it rolls with it. But, what can you do? Although I was also backing War Machine, so maybe I'm just not the best nickname guy.
Let's go with that.
I don't think. Yeah. Well, what final thoughts do you guys have before we wrap it up here? Let's talk about which game of the three that we previewed, which one are we all looking forward to the most?
I'm going to try and catch the Minnesota game. I missed the last Minnesota game. I was able to jump in on the tail end of it to kind of watch. I have no problems watching Karl Anthony Towns play and seeing how we can match up with another younger team. The Celtics game will be interesting to see with the parallels that I mentioned with the teams, or with how the teams are constructed now. And I'm not excited having to play the Pacers a week after we already played them. I needed a little bit more rest from that one.
Yeah.
I got to go with the Wolves. They were my old favorite team, and I still like keeping up with them. And like I said, Big Peck, he's back. He's just a tank down low. Big fan of him. And Rubio at the point. A lot of fun to watch him play. A lot of flashy passes, and he'll pick some pockets, grab some steals, and do a lot of creating for them. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
I think that Minnesota game is going to be fun, but I'm looking forward to the Boston game. It's one of the few days that the only sport I will be watching is NBA basketball. So I'm really excited for that, get to cover that one, and then see a former Zag play. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Let's wrap it up here by having each one of us plug something non-sports related.
Go ahead, David. Talk about some comic books.
Talk about some comic books.
Yeah.
So I'm going to plug a movie that came out on Tuesday that I saw in theaters and just came out on Blu-ray that I bought because I still like physical media. The Martian. If you haven't seen The Martian, go see The Martian. Buy it, rent it, whatever. It is a fantastic movie. And it won the Golden Globe for Best Comedy. That makes no sense, but whatever.
We'll go with that.
Okay.
It was they had no idea how to give that movie props whatsoever, I guess, and so they were like, "Oh, what can we get it for win? Let's give it a comedy." There was a couple haha moments, right? Yeah, let's roll with that.
Okay, what do you have, Charlie?
All right, so this is about a month away still, but the TV show Better Call Saul is coming back for its second season. And if you haven't heard of that, it is the spin-off of AMC's famous Breaking Bad. And it has the same creators and some of the same characters, and it follows the attorney Saul Goodman. And it goes back into his life and shows all the crazy things he's gone through. So I'm looking forward to watching that when that comes out.
So I still haven't even watched Breaking Bad. So
Neither have I, actually.
Hold on.
Oh, wow.
No,
Boys.
I watched I think 4 or 5 episodes of the first season, and then I watched the second half of the season finale. So
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to recommend that you guys both watch Breaking Bad. You guys have to do it.
yeah, I mean, what I watched was great, and I mean, I paid attention to most of the final season just reading recaps because I wanted to watch the whole thing in entirety, but I also wanted to know what was going on. But I mean, like, everything that I watched was phenomenal. I just don't have time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe I'll watch it after graduation.
There you go.
And that's actually leading into what I'm going to plug. I am going to plug school. This is my last semester of school. And this is my first week of my last semester. And it's weird. I've really enjoyed college, but at the same time, I can't wait to be done. So, have a lot of feelings with that. So yeah, plugging school. So thanks for listening. We are on social media before we go. You can find us on Facebook. Our name is Phoenix Suns Multiple Sources. On Twitter, @Sunny in PHX Pod. Email us questions, thoughts, suggestions, anything like that. Sunny in Phoenix PHX Pod @gmail.com. So Sunny in PHX Pod @gmail.com. And then check out our website, multiplesources.net/Phoenix Suns for all of our recaps, and we'll post podcasts there. Thanks to everyone on Reddit, too, who listened and gave suggestions and things like that on the podcast. Hugely helpful for us. So thank you again for listening. We're looking forward to watching the next few games before recording again. And then feel free to contact us. We'll be back next Thursday. Go Suns!